Welcome to Intentional Venom, Making Meaning of School Shootings. What I'd like to offer you today in this PowerPoint is an overview of what's going to happen in this course this semester. So, what we're going to do is take a look at the kinds of questions that pile up when, for example, a boy comes to school with a Tech DC-9 semi-automatic handgun and a sawed-off shotgun in his backpack and kills 12 of his classmates. When institutions of learning become scenes of mass murder, how do we cope? Famously, artists tackle trauma head-on in order to make meaning of the seemingly senseless. With a keen focus in our class on the Montreal Massacre, Columbine, Virginia Tech, and the Amish school shootings, this course will examine the literature, music, sculpture, and even video games of school shootings in order to understand what makes haters hate and artists create. How did such a seminar in school shootings come about? Well, it came about because I, your instructor, Dr. Donna Decker, became intrigued by a massacre that happened in 1989. It was a full 10 years before Columbine happened. And this happened at Polytechnique, the engineering school affiliated with the University of Montreal, wherein a 25-year-old Montreal man went into the school, separated men from women in classrooms, and killed women. Ultimately, he killed 14 women. I'll show you a photo of those next. Until very recently, this was the worst mass shooting in Canada. And as I said earlier, there were 14 women who were killed. Almost all of them were students, engineering students, and they ranged in age from 21 to 31. And every year still, on December 6th, that is the anniversary of the shooting, there are memorials, there are many artistic works and statues built in parks in Montreal. I became intrigued with this, actually wrote a book about this titled Dancing in Red Shoes Will Kill You, because I couldn't find a work that told the entire story, so I had to write that. This is one of the massacres we'll look at in more detail. The learning outcomes for the first year experience course for all students, regardless of the theme of the course, are two primary ones: inquiry and analysis and information literacy. And so we begin with questions. Why do school shootings happen? Who is perpetrating these things? Is there anything we can do to stop them? And we'll look at the research that's been done on all kinds of topics connected to this horrible main topic that we're talking about. And as well, we'll take a careful look at how we assess, evaluate, and then come to understand literacy. So what kinds of texts are we able to rely on as absolutely verifiable? So these are what we're working with. We won't be able to get to all of these school shootings in as much detail as I would like, given that we only have 15 weeks together, but we will look at 4 or 5 of them in very much detail, and then we certainly will take a glance or a lesser detailed look at some others. We will focus on the Montreal Massacre, certainly the Jonesboro, Arkansas shooting, Amish school shooting, Virginia Tech, and then of course the newer shootings, Newtown and Parkland, we're going to have to pay very careful attention to. As I mentioned, the Montreal Massacre happened on this date, and what I'm showing you in this particular picture is a memorial that's in a wall outside of the engineering school where these women were killed. And the bumblebee you can see is an engineering symbol, and the names of all of the women are engraved in that memorial. And we'll spend a lot of time on this massacre. Columbine happened in 1999 in our country. It's probably the massacre you all are most familiar with, and what you're seeing here is Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, both high school seniors who came to school one day intending to bomb their school and take the lives of hundreds and hundreds of students. When the bombs didn't work, they resorted to the many guns that they had, killing 13 of their classmates and then themselves. The primary text we use to study Columbine is the one written by Dave Cullen called Columbine, and he happened to be a reporter on scene when this shooting, the day of this shooting, and then since then did a lot of research and wrote this book that's absolutely seminal to the work we're doing. This is a particularly disturbing school shooting, though I can't honestly say that any of them are not disturbing. This one is the Westside Middle School shooting in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and this is Andrew Golden and Mitchell Johnson. They are the shooters. It's actually very rare to have two shooters, although I've just shown you two in a row. These boys were 11 and 13 years old when they went to their middle school, pulled a fire alarm, which allowed or urged all people out of the building, and when those people, students and teachers, came out, they shot from a distance and killed 5 females, 4 of them students and 1 of them a teacher. This school shooting happened in a one-room schoolhouse in Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania, the date you see here. Inside, in the morning, was a teacher and about 26 children. What happened is that the killer, who was a non-Amish man, called an English man by the Amish, 32 years old, father of a few kids, he came to the school, separated out all of the boys, similar to the Montreal Massacre, and lined up 10 of the little girls. They were young, 6, 8, 10 years old. He ultimately killed 5 of them, and before police could break down the door to get in, killed himself. This particular shooting happened on the date you see here, April 16th, 2007. The shooter is Sung Hui Cho, who was a student at Virginia Tech at the time and was a problematic student on many levels, worked with an English teacher separately on his writing because he was problematic in the schoolroom. He killed some students in a dorm before he went to one of the major classrooms and barricaded himself into that classroom so people couldn't get in, killing ultimately 32 people and then himself. Among those killed was a professor who was blocking the door so that students could escape through the window, through the second floor window to get out. He was killed by Sung Hui Cho, and he was a Holocaust survivor. This is the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, particularly disturbing shooting, of course. Adam Lanza, 20 years old, went into the school, killed 26 people. 20 of them were children between the ages of 6 and 7. What you're seeing here is the activist students from Parkland, the school where Adam Lanza, 19-year-old former student, killed 17 students and injured 17 others. These students have worked tirelessly to, as activists, to stop the insanity of this kind of shooting. These are probably people you're familiar with. The number one question I get asked when I do readings from my book, Dancing in Red Shoes Will Kill You, which is about the Montreal Massacre again, is why do these things happen? What is it, and how do we stop them? The answer is I know some of why, I don't know how to stop them yet. But what we look at in this course in detail, and again, everything I've just told you, I'm giving you a gloss. We're going to get into these cases with lots of intensity. Anyway, the ones that we look at in a major way are Dave Cullen's view, certainly about Columbine, that one of the shooters, Eric Harris, was a psychopath or sociopath. Those two terms I use synonymously, as does the DSM. Jackson Katz, he has a really awesome movie called Tough Guys. He believes that the major force, the major reasoning is hypermasculinity or toxic masculinity. So we look at that. And then Catherine Newman has a constellation theory. She says there are lots of factors that go into this, and it's more of a sociological perspective. So very interesting. And what I'm asking students to do all along is look at patterns. What are some of the things you notice? And maybe even you, in this overview, are noticing patterns already. You know, who are the shooters? Where do they come from? Are they certain parts of the country? And so on. What we'll do all semester is pepper the course with this mantra. What do we know and how do we know it? So the goal here in citing this mantra is, what do we know? What exactly do we know about particular shootings and any patterns we see? And how do we know it? Do we know it from hearsay? Do we know it from Twitter? Do we know it from textbooks? How do we understand the credibility of a source? Who are the authorities? So we're looking at all of that information literacy I talked about earlier. We'll spend some time looking at the myths around school shootings. There are lots of beliefs that persist to this day. They persist around school shootings, and what we'll do is examine those, and we'll bring our mantra to bear on these. Do violent video games urge people to shoot up schools? Does violent music? What about bullying? What about students who are goths, which was an accusation made in the Columbine case? What about trench coats? May sound silly, but it was certainly something believed in Columbine, after Columbine. What about mental illness? That's a big one, right? What about broken families? These are all things that people will sort of automatically respond, and what we're going to do is examine each one of these to see, is there any truth to any of them at all? Thank you for being with me for this overview. We have a lot of work to do this semester. What kinds of conclusions will we come to? Often, honestly, we end up with more questions than answers, but our questions are well informed, and we will certainly come away knowing a lot more than we began, and that includes me. I learn something every semester. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing you, meeting you, and beginning our work to try to understand this untenable behavior that we have in the United States. Thank you.